And if I have pure feelings, and it's very easy to connect with your feelings and see what's going on. So it's not a deep, profound exploration. You can touch in and see how am I feeling very quickly. So do I have pure feelings for everyone? And the second leaf that comes from that seed of love, um, good wishes. Do I truly have good wishes for the benefit, the progress, the ascending of this particular individual, and generally for all that who I'm in contact with? So I wanted to share that very powerful image with all of you. And the Brahma Kumaris are an organization, but we consider ourselves a family. But of course, when you've got a million people across the world, it means that there also has to be some sort of organization. And so you have to follow the systems of an organization. And so very often the boundaries get crossed. That's the reality. It was in a very, very traditional area of India called Sindh, which is today Pakistan. Women were literally second class citizens. They didn't have any right to choose anything or decide anything for themselves. First, it was the father, then it would be the husband, and in lieu of either or both, it would be the brother. Not even the mother, it would be the brother who would decide. So it was that sort of era. This is the mid 1930s, 1936. But even today, those of you who've been to Karachi in recent times, and I was going there frequently over the last many years, you don't want to walk alone in the streets of Karachi. The way that you're looked at is not very nice. So that carries on, in fact, not just then, but today even. So imagine at that time, and Brahma Baba, the founder, had a vision of a better world, but also much upheaval in the world. And he decided to start a school and share spiritual teachings. There's plenty of other schools, but spiritual teachings. But the interesting thing was, in his better world, what he saw was equality and justice. And that immediately brought about the gender story. And he decided that the school would be open for everyone, but he would give the role of teachers and leaders to the women. Until today, that continues. Continuity of that vision comes to the point today where still today, we are the only spiritual organization in the world that is open for men and women, but yet has women in a very specific way as its teachers and leaders. So there's been many challenges along the way, from the establishment, from the patriarchy, from families, individuals. But because there's a passion that's driving us, and the passion is truth, love for truth, and the passion is also for transformation, first and foremost within ourselves. Um, Sunday is a time for stories, family stories. So let me share another story. It's a real story. Um, when I decided, age 19, that this is to be my life, I had met the founder several times because of the family connections with the organization. And that was through childhood and through my teens. But now it was different because I had chosen this to be my life. And I had a conversation with this person. We call him Brahma Baba. And Brahma Baba said, is it possible to remove suffering from the world? And he was 92. So I just listened. It was a rhetorical question. And he said, yes, it is. Is it possible to remove ill health from the world? I said, yes, it's possible. And the third was, is it possible to remove poverty from the world? And he again said, yes, it is. And I waited for more. And he then said, people don't really understand, but the essence of all of these things is that when you have negativity within the self, lust, anger, greed, attachment, ego, fear, carelessness, laziness, slander, making excuses. If you've got these within you, then these are the cause of the suffering, the poverty, and the ill health. And if you were to deal with these and remove these, then yes, there would be no suffering, there would be good health, and there would be no poverty. And in a way, it's a very simplistic way to look at things. But in another way, it's actually the most profound way to look at things. And over the years, I've just had proof after proof that, yes, this is what is the reality. But in the year 2000, the UN had what they called the Millennium Peace Gathering at UN headquarters. And it was the first time, because the UN is a political body, but for the first time, they called together spiritual heads and religious heads of organizations from across the world. And it was a fantastic gathering. Daddy Jayanti was our leader in the gathering, and I was part of her delegation. And it was a very colorful gathering of 1,000 leaders, and 99% were men. There were many women in secretarial roles, but not in the role of leaders. 1% were there as leaders. And the gathering and the ceremony was beautiful. But the next day, they called together all the different heads of the different units of the UN, Save the Children, the population, WHO, international labor, the environment, all of these different things. And each one was giving a report of what has happened within their unit up until now. And there was a similar song that they were all singing. Basically, it was that we have more resources, more technology, more people, more information, but yet the conditions today are worse than when the UN started in each one of these different areas. And they said that when we looked at this and realized that this is what's going on, we asked ourselves the question, why not? Why are we not able to move towards a better world? And they realized that it was lack of human will and political will, of course, but basically lack of human will. We have the resources, but we can't make the change. And so they said, we want the religious and spiritual leaders involved because you work at the grassroots and people trust you more than they would trust politicians or a political organization. And so we want you to carry this message to people that when people have the will, there can be a better world. And it reminded me of that conversation that I'd had in 1968 with Brahma Baba. So it had taken long years, but at one point there came that awareness, certainly within a very important organization, that what was needed was change within the human being. In 2018, I was in a roundtable again at UN headquarters in New York, but this was a small group. And this was put together by one individual who at that time was in the unit for population. And he said, we've been talking about now the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, which are the foundation in structural change in terms of a better world. And the statement of the SDGs begins with this idea that there should be human flourishing, and dignity is at the heart of the UN Charter, because we want to have the dignity of human beings, the peoples of the world. The UNESCO Charter speaks about wars beginning in the minds of men, and the defenses of peace lie therein also. So if you look at the foundation of the UN, dignity, well-being, peace in the minds of men, all of these are not things of logistics. These are things of the spiritual dimension of the human being, the being itself. And so, although they're there in the instruments at the UN, but the practical reality, now we're again still talking about the same issues. And essentially, the SDGs talk about human flourishing, but nobody's defined what is human flourishing and what is human development. But of course, it's again a spiritual discussion. And so, this particular roundtable, I was asked to speak to this and how spirituality can actually help us in all of the different areas that we are struggling with. And so I know that if we're thinking about an organization that can do this sort of work, my vision falls on the UN, but also, of course, all countries are part of the UN, could not exist without all the countries. And there was a moment of great hope for me about 5 years ago when Mr. Modi from India spoke about having a day of yoga. And I was told later that this suggestion put forward in September was taken up so quickly by all the different countries that the following year you had your first International Day of Yoga. And yoga was being talked about then, especially by Modi at that time, not as just the physical exercises, but the well-being of the human individual. And the word yoga means union, and it means the union of my own inner world, where I'm able to bring together the things that at the moment battling my feelings and my conscience, my values and my practical life. Now, can I have such a practice that I'm able to unite and bring into harmony, harmonize all these different aspects of myself? And then further, the harmony of mind and body, but also harmony amongst people, harmony of the self with the divine. And so yoga in many different ways, in many different levels, actually is something that's bringing about union, unity, harmony. But it begins with me. The last sentence that Baba had said was, you can't tell people to change. You have to be the example and do it yourself first. And if people see this, then some may be inspired to change also. But you can't tell people to change. It doesn't happen. And so in terms of the very practical question of feminine leadership and then also the organizational structures, etc., there's a time and place for everything. And so say, for example, if there's within the system, maybe time for individuals, and if that's not possible in a big organization, time to meet maybe the specific individuals who carry more responsibility than others, heads of department, for example, and to be able to connect with them with a lot of love, and to be able to share my own learnings with them, so that it's not coming like a top-down approach, but it's coming as a conversation amongst equals. But that's a private conversation, whether it's with 5 or 10 or 30, whatever it may be. And within that, the sharing of personal experiences, very empowering for others. What is it that I've learned on my journey? It's very practical. And so it carries that authority of experience. Yesterday, there was also the question, what sort of authority? Well, the biggest authority is the authority of practical experience. I've been in your department, I've done this, I've been there, I know it. I've been here too, and I know what you're talking about. I know the pressures. But where am I at now? Having gone through all of that, I'm now in a different space, looking at things differently. And I think that if I can save your time and energy, instead of you taking 5 years to do this, maybe you can do it in a year. Or instead of taking a year to do this, maybe you can do it in a few months. And so that authority of experience is what I carry, and that's what I share. But the approach is one of friendship, and friendship is surely part of love. Sometimes we have very fixed ideas about love being just giving a hug or a kiss or whatever. But no, love is manifest in pure thoughts, good feelings, good wishes, to be able to share things with others with openness, with honesty, creating a safe environment. Definitely, that's also part of love for each other. So I think that it's possible to manage both of these things. One more thing there, that if I see someone making a mistake, one is to react to that. But the other is to know that my reaction isn't going to be helpful. What I can do is to make sure I stay very calm within, not reactive, not aggressive. And when I am calm, I call that individual and I speak to them. And I tell them, well, this has been overstepping the line, overstepping the boundary. And I just want to caution you that it can't carry on like this. But if it happens again, then these are the consequences. If I do it with respect, keeping the individual's dignity, but also point out what is of benefit for them, not just because it's the system, you've broken the system. No, but do you realize the damage it's doing to you and to your future? And is it possible for you to move in a different direction? Because I'm concerned about your future. So I think there is a way to marry both of these things. And then the systemic change. Well, for the UN to call spiritual leaders to the table and say, you tell us what we can do for you, but you also can do this for us. There was a very powerful environmentalist and activist who um, she's still very much in the forefront of everything, so I won't mention names. But for many years, she would see me and she would know of our organization because she's from India and very active in India. But she would sort of look the other way. And then a few years ago, we were in Rio for Rio 20 plus. I think that was the situation. And she saw me coming, and instead of looking the other way, she actually came straight up to me and said, I'm so glad you're here. And she gave me a hug and she said, this is the first time I'm going to join an interfaith panel. And I know you're on that panel too. And so far, as you know, I've avoided religious and spiritual groups, but I want to be on that panel because I've now understood that we need to touch people. And it's spirituality and religion that can touch people. And so I've decided to be here and join the interfaith panel. So she told me this personally, and about an hour later, we were in the same panel, and she actually made this statement. And she told everybody there, it's the first time she's in such a panel, but this is why she's decided to join the panel. One individual within an organization can bring about change, but of course the UN and all of that is a little bit different to politics and business. But business now looks not only at the bottom line of the euro or the pound or the dollar, they also look at the impact on environment and the impact on society, the triple line. And so that's a big change from where we were. And so I think if we just keep our light shining and keep moving ahead, reaching out to people in key places, maybe it's women, maybe it's men, but they can be the ones who can open further doors and carry these ideas further. So whenever people would talk to Dadi and say, I'm now in this organization and this is the role I play, I've been offered a higher position, should I take it? They thought that she would tell them, no, you focus on your meditation and you take away the pressures that exist and you don't worry about that. But her answer invariably was, if you want to make a difference, not just to yourself, but to the world, accept that position and do whatever you can within that so that you're able to influence the decision-making process and make sure that things are moving in the right direction. It doesn't take everybody in an organization to make change happen. It takes individuals, and the individuals make those decisions that can move things forward.